Hello everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Introduction to Microeconomics at Ozarka College. In this video, what I'm going to do is show you a demonstration of how to calculate total revenue and profit and loss, and also how to find the profit maximization or loss minimization point. So this is basically a demonstration of what you're going to need to do for problem 9.1 on page 181 in your textbook, and actually continues on to page 182. So what they give you here on this particular problem on your assignment for chapter 9 is it gives you a table or an exhibit at the top of page 182. It shows you output, gives you output in the table, fixed cost and variable cost, and then you have to calculate total revenue and then profit loss, and then you have to determine by looking at those profit loss numbers where the profit maximization point or loss minimization point is. Alright, so I'm going to take you through a similar set of numbers. These aren't the numbers that you're going to be doing on your problem on your assignment, but they are similar. So hopefully you can take what you learned from this demonstration and apply it to when you're calculating that problem on the assignment. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created just some sample numbers for output and fixed costs and variable costs. So basically the first three columns of information are given to us, and then what we're tasked with is how we need to calculate total revenue first. So first thing we're going to do is look at the formula for total revenue. Total revenue is basically output or quantity of production times your price, right? So in this particular scenario, I've assumed that the product price is $200. Now in the problem that you're doing for your assignment, it's going to be a different price. So just kind of be aware of that. This is just a demonstration, an example that's similar to what you're going to be doing on your assignment. All right, so I'm assuming a $200 product price. So to get total revenue, it's very simple. Of course, for zero rate of output, when you're not producing anything yet, your total revenue is going to be zero. That should make sense to you. It's just 0 times the price, which in this case is 0. All right. So when you're not producing anything, you're not making any money yet. So that should make sense to you. Now, the first unit of output that we produce, our total revenue is just going to be, again, the quantity of output, in this case 1, times the product price, which is $200. So our total revenue is going to be $200 at an output level of 1. And so basically, you can basically do the same thing all the way down. So 2 times 200 for the second rate of output. Your total revenue is going to be 2 units of output times the $200 product price. So it's going to be $400 total revenue. Okay, and so basically you just do that all the way down. Okay, it's just the output times the price. Now, for profit loss, again, it gives us, we just calculated total revenue, which is one of the things that you need to calculate profit or loss. And then the other thing that we need to calculate profit or loss is total cost. And it doesn't give us total cost, but it gives us the 2 components of total cost, which are fixed and variable cost. Okay. Now, in this case, I basically assumed the fixed cost of $100 for my example. And of course, the fixed cost, since it is a fixed cost, it doesn't depend on the level of production. That $100 is going to be all the way down through all levels of production. Remember, a fixed cost doesn't change with the level of production. So it doesn't matter whether we produce 0 units, 5 units, 1,000,000 units. It doesn't matter. Our fixed cost is going to remain the same. So the fixed cost is just $100 all the way down. Okay. Now, our variable cost, you'll notice it changes with the level of production. So with the 0 units of production, if we're not producing anything yet, We don't need any variable resources, so our variable cost is 0. So basically, your total cost, again, is going to be just your fixed cost plus your variable cost. So over here on the profit loss column, that very first row of the table here, where you have zero rate of output, you haven't produced anything yet, you're going to have a loss equal to your fixed cost, because you don't have any revenue, but you are having to pay $100 in fixed cost. So your profit loss at that point at zero rate of output is minus $100. Okay, now and you basically just calculate profit loss the same way all the way down. Of course, starting with the first unit of production, it's going to get it's a little bit more complicated. It's not complicated, it's very simple, but there's a few more numbers involved in calculating profit loss when you're actually producing. So with the first unit of production, our total revenue we calculated as $200, and so we would just take that value minus the sum of our fixed and variable cost. In this case, our fixed cost is $100, our variable cost is $150, so that would be now 200 minus 250, which is a minus $50. So we have a loss of $50 with the first unit of output. All right, and again, you just kind of do the same thing all the way down. So the second unit of production, our fixed cost is $100, our variable cost is $220, our total revenue we calculated as $400. So you just take that $400 total revenue minus your fixed and variable cost. So in this case, it would be $400 minus $320, which is a positive value, in other words, a profit of $80. Okay, and again, just kind of look at my numbers there. I'm not going to go over each one of those with you. You basically calculate those all the way down the same way. Okay, again, profit loss is just your total revenue minus your fixed and variable cost. And of course, if your revenue is less than your cost, then you're going to have a loss. If your revenue is above or greater than your cost, then obviously you're going to have a profit. Now, let's see. One of the things it's going to ask you to do in addition to completing the table is it's going to ask you how much the firm should produce. Okay? Yeah, it's going to ask you at what rate of output does the firm maximize profit or minimize loss. So in this case, all we're going to do is look at that last column, that profit loss column, and see at what level of output is our profit the greatest. All right. And of course, we had some levels of production where we had a loss, but we also had some where we had a profit. So obviously, we would look down through here, and you'll notice at output level 4 is where we maximize our profit. We have a positive profit there of $220, okay, which is higher than any other level of production on that table. So that is how much we would produce to maximize profit, okay? And I've got it kind of highlighted here for you. So in this particular example, now this is not going to, again, that fourth unit of production being our profit maximization point on this example, it's going to be different on your problem that you're working. But you're going to basically find out the profit maximization or loss minimization the same way. All right? So we would produce, given the information that we have in this economic scenario, we would produce 4 units of output in order to maximize our profit. Okay? Now, one other thing that you need to keep in mind when we're dealing with this type of market structure that we're learning about in Chapter 9. In Chapter 9, we're learning about perfect competition. And as you read through the Chapter 9 resources, you'll learn that in perfect competition, each firm in that type of industry or in that type of market faces a perfectly elastic demand curve, perfectly horizontal demand curve. So they can sell all they want at the market price, but their demand falls to zero if they try to increase the price at all. Okay, it's an all or nothing thing with perfect competition. Okay, it's kind of on one extreme end of market structure. Okay, so when it asks about the relationship between marginal revenue and price and average revenue for the perfect competitor, like what we're learning about in Chapter 9, for this type of market structure, all of those values are going to be the same. So whatever your price is, in this case $200, is also going to be what our marginal revenue is. It's also going to be what our average revenue is, because we're selling all units of our product at the same price, okay? Because we face that perfectly elastic demand curve as a perfect competitor, okay? All right, so that's one of the things it's going to ask about is that relationship between or among those values, okay? All right, and then one final thing I want to show you here is it's also going to ask you about the relationship, in this case, between marginal revenue and marginal cost. So in this case, what I've done, and what you'll probably need to do on your, when you're completing this problem on your assignment, is you'll need to calculate marginal cost to try to figure out, compare it with marginal revenue and find the point where our profit maximization is, okay, by looking at the marginal values. We already did it for the total values, but now we're going to do it for marginal values. So you'll notice the marginal revenue is very simple. It's just whatever your price is. In my case, in this particular example, the price is $200. So my marginal revenue all through all levels of production is going to be $200. Okay? Doesn't matter how much we produce, we're only going to be able to sell for that $200 price, that market price. Now, our marginal cost, if you'll remember, and we've done this before, marginal cost is basically the change in your total cost over the change in quantity. Now, the quantity part of this is going to be very simple. The denominator part of this formula for marginal cost is going to be very simple because we're increasing our output in this table by 1 unit each time. So we're always going to be dividing by 1, which is basically just going to make whatever the change in your total cost is, that's going to be your marginal cost, okay? On the first one, the change in our marginal cost is $150, okay? So because we're moving from $100 with 0 units of output to $250 total cost at a rate of output of 1. So the change is $150, and you divide that by 1 to get the change in your total cost, which is your marginal cost, $150. And you do that same thing all the way down. You just basically, and again, since we're increasing our output by 1 unit each time, all you really need to do in this case is figure out what the change in total cost is, okay? Because you're going to be dividing by 1 each time. All right? So the marginal revenue, you'll notice, stays the same through all levels of production because of that basic idea of that perfectly elastic demand curve that we face in perfect competition. So again, your marginal revenue equals your price equals your average revenue. So we can say that the marginal revenue is going to stay the same all the way throughout all levels of production. That's one of the things it's going to ask about on that question. And then the other thing is it wanted you to kind of look at how marginal cost is either increasing or decreasing throughout. Well, in this particular case, this may not be the same on your particular problem that you're working through for this assignment. This is just on the example I have. You'll notice the marginal cost decreases at first and then starts to increase, okay? And that basic, decrease at first and then increase is basically an indication of the law of diminishing marginal returns that we've already talked about, okay? And it basically, remember, the law of diminishing marginal returns says that at some point, as you add more of a variable resource to a fixed resource in order to produce a good, eventually your marginal returns from that labor or that resource is going to diminish at some point, okay? And of course, in this case, we can see where the diminishing marginal return sets in. It sets in between the third and fourth units, okay? That's where our marginal cost is increasing, okay? All right. So hopefully that will help you to kind of better understand how to complete that particular problem 9.1 on page 181 in your textbook. If you have any questions about this as you're working through it, just let me know. Remember to include the table in your assignment document that you submit, and make sure that you show all of your calculations just like I've done here. I want to make sure that that I know that you understand how to make the calculations. The only way to do that is for you to show all your calculations just like I've done here, okay? So just let me know if you have any questions about that, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you.